Organized crime generally and in West Africa. This is a crime that is not just being perpetrated by ordinary persons. It's a crime that is common among the high-profile individuals. And the members are very clever. They recruit their groups from the political institution, from the military, from judiciary, from the economic elite, such that they can perpetuate their interests. And if there's any problem, they know where they can go to for them to sustain themselves.
It was observed that member nations without any stringent laws on drugs are becoming source of drug traffickers, drug transit around the country, particularly African countries, and in particular within Africa, Nigeria, because of our population.
Anywhere there is terrorism, there is banditry, there is crime, there is violence, there is human trafficking, and there is environmental devastation, there are drugs.
Look at the case of terrorism in Nigeria, Boko Haram. As far back as 2001, Boko Haram becomes issue, and up to today, we are yet to fight Boko Haram properly.
Financial intelligence is all about disruption. How do you disrupt the activities of these drug traffickers?
The quantity of drugs that have been pumping into the country, the cocaine and heroin, as a result of this new NDLA effort at that time to combat the spread of these things, the taking out of this drug, because as you know, it was already damaging the image of the country to the extent that by 1980s to early 90s, 2 Nigerians were were killed by the military regime in the 80s. And we all started shouting, that is too punitive, just for carrying drug, you are killing people. You remember those 2 people killed at General Waris regime? And then the laws have to be amended to say, okay, it is no more death penalty, it is now life imprisonment.
More than 3 decades, this drug issue is yet to be addressed in Nigeria. Why? Because the members are very clever. They have their members in National Assembly, among the ministers, in the military, paramilitary, police, among others. It's not just crime that is common among less privileged.
As of 2022, a year ago, there are 14.3 million Nigerians from 15 to 64 years old that are abusers of drugs.
Drug and drug abuse has gone beyond what you and I know as cocaine, heroin, and wee. It is no more Indian hemp. It is all of us here. Drug is available where you are sitting. Drug is available where I'm sitting. The chairman is sitting on drug, he's wearing drugs, he's talking drugs to his mic. Today, if you're an elderly man in your house, be careful when you are shaving your hair. That gray hair you shave is drug. And the children are packing it to inhale it and become intoxicated.
And then, when you look at different forms of drug crime, some of them will call naturally, just like this of marijuana. Marijuana is just like a plant, at least when you plant it, it comes out just like the way we cultivate vegetables, among others. Some are produced from natural substances, at least to form substances, just like heroin, cocaine, and some in form of synthetic, and they become drugs that have been prescribed, and they consume more than what is being prescribed by experts.
Nigeria was largely a transit country for drugs. We don't produce cocaine, we don't produce heroin. Even at that time, 1960s, cannabis, the one you call hemp, don't call it Indian hemp, it is hemp. India say we should not add their name to it. The one you know as hemp, Igbo, Bana, Stone, was just about 20 years old in the country then. And after the establishment of NDLA, it was discovered that cocaine was largely being moved to Nigeria from South America. And heroin was being moved to Nigeria, or West Africa particularly, from Southeast Asia, the same axis where cannabis come from, hemp come from, Southeast Asia. Because the history of hemp in Nigeria is that it came in through the soldiers who went for the Second World War.
We are having problem with the adaptability of these drug pushers. They have segregated the drug use into three. They have the drugs for the rich and the powerful, which are NDLEA, NAFDAC, and co. Their eyes are there. They have drugs for the poor, masses, and for everybody. And the one that is reigning now, somebody was talking below the radar. I call them seal-coated drugs. Most of us here are users. I call them plus, water plus. You are asked to take paracetamol 2 in the morning. You say it will not work. Let me take 4.
Today, if you have animals in your house like goats, rams, be careful with their excreta. Today, if you go to your child's room in the boys' quarters and you see plantain there, what comes to your mind? All right, you don't want to answer the plantain one. If you see the fridge loaded with Maltina, what comes to your mind? It's for entertaining his friends, it's a soft drink for him. Lies. If you find that Maltina always filled up in his fridge, it's for intoxication, particularly if he mixes it with some other substance called Maggi.
That one that is open and NAFDAC is not doing anything, NDLEA is Kaya Mata. Kaya Maza. You cannot go to buy fuel without somebody coming to tell you there is MTN network. I asked, what is MTN network? They said that they were some 2 hours. They are drugs. And sir, you have to check. Go to any filling station. Go to those people selling Dabino. Go to those people, you hear name Nuclear, AK-47, Segariya Wai. They are all drugs. Kaya Mata. And then it has reached a stage, I don't know of other languages. Now drugs have become part of our popular culture.
When you have states comprising different institutions, and we have here a lot of issues about weak states, the state that is moving towards failure. And then what are the parameters? What are the, these are states that are not ready to make things easier for the citizens, including Nigeria as a country. The security is just security of the state, of the lawmakers, of the executive members of the country, of the governors, senators, not for ordinary persons like you and I. So on that basis, you are creating room for other crises to occur. And when there are gaps, people look at the gaps, they fit into it, and they continue to sustain themselves within that parameter of illegality.
When you find your child become a good boy all of a sudden, early in the morning, he takes broom, let me just make that, and he starts sweeping the compound. And you say, this stubborn boy, that doesn't help mommy, doesn't help. It's now sweeping the house, it's now a good boy. Oh, very good boy. He's becoming a responsible child, isn't it? Lies. That sweeping of the compound he's doing is gathering the drug you will use when you go out. Drugs in your compound, I won't tell you.
We have 3 major routes where illicit drugs come in, go out, not only within the region, to other countries of the world, among others. We have Atlantic coast up that covers Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Senegal, among others. We also have Sahel up, comprising Mali, Algeria, Niger, Libya, Mauritania, among others. And the last one is the Gulf of the Guinea, where Nigeria belongs to. Niger Delta, Ghana, Nigeria, and some other key countries within the region also operate within that context.
So NAFDAC, NDLEA, and the national orientation should check not about the drugs for the rich, because there is Akurukura, there is Agawagi, that people now, they are herbs. You put in water, I say water plus. You just take it small. A friend once told me mistakenly he saw somebody brewing tea, and he took it, he said, can you imagine I wash my wife's clothes in the night? These are drugs. You see them brewing tea, so these are the plus I'm talking. We should be careful. These are drugs not for the rich, but they are for everyday consumption.
People began to consume some of these items illegally, And to the extent that when you go to our markets, places, motor parks, and different public spaces, drugs, illicit drugs are very common.
Have you ever found Okada rider tying handkerchief around his nose when he's riding bike? What comes to your mind? Because of the smoke, because of the sun, from morning to night, this boy is suffering. Riding Okada, the breeze, isn't it? You are a liar. That fuel, petrol in the tank of his machine, when he's not carrying any person, he park aside, remove the handkerchief, soak it in the tank, squeeze it out, and tie it around his nose. As he's riding, the inhaling of that petrol makes him high. So he's on gear, machine is on gear.
Because you are now using popular culture to validate take of drugs is something good. Thank God youth corpers are here, Colorado. You know what I'm saying. I know you say no. All these are what I tag below the radar plus.
Then we come to the issue of policy issues I should address. Life imprisonment, how long shall the person stay in jail? And we say life imprisonment is between 15 to 25 years. But what we find in court, you see in the papers every day, NDLA intercept 1 billion worth of drugs at the airport. But when such cases get to court, life imprisonment, the law said, but the judge will use his discretion to give somebody who is moving an item of about 20 billion, 10 billion, is giving him a fine of either 200,000 or 6 months in jail.
The laws are an issue because the stiffer penalty is not given to those drug crimes, those that commit drug crimes.
For instance, the policies are there, but the issue is implementation. And for us to do this, the security agencies, the government, civil society organizations, parents, teachers, all of us have to come together in order to tackle this issue of drug crime.
What can we do looking forward? Number one, our leaders must be conscious of the security of the situation. That this problem is security threat. What can we do? Because if you don't consider something as a problem, you cannot solve it.
So what you do is you target what hurts them the most, which is the financial aspect. Because at the end of the day, anybody who is engaged in drug trafficking, he is not there to use the drugs for his own consumption alone, but it is to earn some kind of income. And at the end of the day, most of these drug traffickers that are being arrested at the airports or along the roads in the country, these are the small fish. The big fish are those who are living in very big homes, not only in Nigeria, but also outside the country.
So one of the things NAFDAC did was to approve the classification of tramadol to be like a nationally controlled drug.
Now, from our own angle, from NAFDAC, what we have done is to go to National Assembly. Currently, our act has been reviewed with the previous National Assembly, so we were just waiting for the assent of the president before the new transition. So we're still working on it. And in that new one, we have prescribed new innovations to be able to handle the drug cartel, because it's a highly organized crime, because they are fully funded, and because our penalties are not stiff enough, we're not able to curtail their activities.
So the policy as it is, say 15 to 25 years for life imprisonment, but the courts reduce that to 5 years, 3 years, 6 years, or pay a fine of 200,000 and go for an offense of 3 billion or 10 billion naira. So we're having problem on the area of legislation, we're having problem on the area of legal aspect, the area of courts. But of course, when such people come back to the society immediately again, the blame goes to NDLA. Since somebody they arrested yesterday, they have released him to come back, they have collected money.
Nigeria, for example, we have national drug law enforcement, and of course, you ask yourself, how far have they gone in terms of minimizing, neutralizing the movement of illegal drugs from Nigeria to other countries of the world?
So when somebody applies for import of, let's say, tramadol, NAFDAC is responsible for giving the import permit and permit to clear. So before we issue that, we carry out inspection of their warehouses, and make sure that their records, their distribution records can be authenticated, which means any suspicious or huge amount of consignment that has been sold to Mr. X, we go to verify that Mr. X actually bought and received it. Now, if Mr. X did not receive it, we'll move it over to our investigation and enforcement unit, which tracks down to ensure what happened to that. And if that is not ascertained, then that company will not be given import permit again to bring in narcotics into the country.
Then asset forfeiture is also part of what we have, the innovations we have put in our new law, so that those linked to those drug crimes will be made to forfeit their assets. And with that, you are able to, penalize and reduce the incidence of that crime that has been committed.
How do we fight this crime? When the perpetrators belong to the top echelons in their, preferred professions.
You have to get to them. How do you get to them? You trace the money. This is where the NFIE comes in. We collaborate with the NDLEA. They send in requests to us. We have a form of sending intelligence to the NDLEA. Between 2022, 2021, I think we've sent over 120 intelligence reports to them to help them in their investigation. And this has yielded a lot of positive results. As you can see from the current NDLEA boss, a lot of convictions have been secured.